I should have taken off the necklace before I walked into that ballroom. But some mistakes do not feel like mistakes until a powerful man stops breathing because of them. The first thing I remember from that night was the sound of rain tapping against the glass walls of the Beaumont Hotel, soft and steady, like fingers asking to be let in. Outside, Manhattan blurred into silver lights and black pavement. Inside, everything shone too brightly. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, champagne bubbles rising in glasses I could never afford to touch. I sat at the grand piano near the east wall, wearing a borrowed black dress and shoes that pinched my heels, pretending I belonged among people who paid more for dinner than I made in a week teaching music to kids after school. My name was Grace Miller, 26 years old, part-time music teacher, part-time church accompanist, full-time expert at smiling when my checking account said I had no reason to. I had been hired to play background music for a charity gala, nothing more. Keep the songs soft. Keep my head down. Do not talk to the donors unless they talk first. That was what the event coordinator told me while adjusting my chair, as if even my posture needed permission. I nodded because I needed the money. $200 for 3 hours of music meant groceries, subway fare, and one more week of not asking my foster mother for help. So I played. Old standards. Gentle ballads. The kind of music wealthy people liked because it made them feel deep without asking anything from them. My fingers moved across the keys, calm and practiced, even though my stomach felt tight. I never liked rooms full of mirrors. They made me feel watched. Not by people. By some version of myself I could not remember becoming. Around 9:30, the room quieted for the foundation director's speech. I was told to fill the pause with something elegant, something intimate. I do not know why I chose that song. I had no sheet music for it, no memory of learning it. It simply rose inside me, old and aching, like a door opening in a house I had never visited. My hands found the melody first. Then my voice followed, barely above a whisper. The words were Italian. I did not speak Italian. I still sang them. One line, maybe two. The notes trembled out of me, and for one strange second, the ballroom felt colder. A glass hit the floor somewhere near the back of the room. Not shattered, dropped, then caught too late. The sound was small, but it cut through everything. My fingers missed a key. I looked up. That was when I saw him. Vincent Hale stood near the far column, surrounded by men in dark suits who looked too still to be ordinary security. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black like the room had been built around his silence. His hair was dark, brushed back neatly, with faint silver at the temples that made him look more dangerous, not older. But it was his face that held me there. Not handsome, though he was. Not rich, though every inch of him said money had stopped being a concern years ago. It was the way he stared at me, like I had reached across the room and placed my hand inside an old wound. My voice died. My hand lifted to my throat before I could stop it. The small silver necklace slipped out from beneath my dress collar and caught the chandelier light. Vincent's expression changed so sharply the air seemed to leave the room with it. He walked toward me. No hurry. No wasted movement. People moved aside without understanding why they were moving. The closer he came, the louder my heartbeat became. When he stopped beside the piano, I could smell rain on wool, whiskey, and something clean beneath it. His eyes were pale gray, fixed not on my face but on the pendant resting against my skin. For a moment, he looked almost human, almost broken. Then he spoke, low enough that only I could hear, but every word landed like a locked door opening. "That's my dead wife's necklace," he said. His gaze lifted to mine, and the color had drained from his face. "So tell me why it's around your throat." For 3 seconds, I forgot how to breathe. The ballroom kept moving behind him, all soft laughter and silverware and music that was no longer coming from my hands. But the space around the piano had gone silent enough to hear the rain crawl down the windows. Vincent Hale did not touch me. Somehow that frightened me more. Men like him did not need to raise a hand to make the world step back. They only had to look at you as if your life had just become evidence. I closed my fingers around the pendant, small and cold against my palm. "I do not know what you are talking about," I said, but my voice came out thin, almost childlike. His eyes moved from the necklace to my face, searching for something with such terrible focus that I wanted to disappear inside my own skin. "Where did you get it?" he asked. "It is mine." That was not my question. One of the men behind him shifted closer. Vincent lifted 2 fingers without looking, and the man stopped instantly. That little gesture told me more than a threat could have. He controlled the room so completely he did not have to prove it. I stood too fast, and the piano bench scraped against the marble floor. Several people turned. The event coordinator's face went pale near the bar. I could see her deciding whether saving me was worth offending a donor who owned half the silence in the room. She chose silence. Most people did. I was hired to play music, I said. I did not come here to be interrogated. Something moved across Vincent's face. Not anger. Pain, tightly locked behind discipline. Then we will speak somewhere private. No, the word surprised both of us. It came out stronger than I felt. His stare sharpened. No, I do not go into private rooms with strangers. For the first time, he looked directly into my eyes instead of at the necklace. Up close, I could see the exhaustion beneath the authority, the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the stillness of a man who had trained himself not to react because reaction had once cost him something. Smart, he said quietly. Then he stepped back and turned his head toward a woman in a navy suit with a foundation badge. Ms. Miller will use the library. The door stays open. My men stay outside. So do yours. The woman nodded before I could object. I hated that. Hated the way everyone obeyed him while pretending they had made a choice. But I also saw the strange care in the arrangement. Door open. Witnesses nearby. No hand on my arm. No. Command to follow. Just a path cleared through the crowd and a question still burning between us. I walked because staying in that ballroom felt worse. The library was 20 feet away, lined with dark wood shelves and leather chairs no one had probably sat in for comfort. The city glowed beyond the windows, wet and restless. I stopped just inside the doorway. Vincent remained several feet from me, hands visible, posture controlled. The men in suits stood outside, far enough not to hear, close enough to remind me that ordinary rules had ended the moment I sang that song. Tell me your name, he said. You already know it. I want to hear you say it. My throat tightened. Grace Miller. His face did not change, but something in his eyes sank. How old are you? 26. Where were you 7 years ago? The question landed wrong. Too specific. Too prepared by grief. I looked at him carefully. Why? Because 7 years ago, my wife died wearing that necklace. My grip tightened around the pendant until the edges pressed into my skin. I woke up 7 years ago, I said before I could stop myself. Vincent went completely still. Where? I swallowed. The room smelled like old books and rain-soaked wool. My pulse beat against the chain. A small hospital outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I had no identification. No phone. No memory of how I got there. A woman named Margaret Reed took me in after the hospital released me. She said I was lucky to be alive. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed low. And the necklace? It was the only thing I had on me. He looked away then, toward the window, like the lights of Manhattan had suddenly become unbearable. When he spoke again, the words were almost too soft to hear. Evelyn was declared dead that same night. My stomach dropped. Evelyn. The name did something strange inside me. Not recognition. Not exactly. More like a key turning in a lock somewhere deep and dark. I pressed my hand to my chest. I am sorry for what happened to your wife, I said. But I am not her. Vincent turned back to me, and for the first time, I saw fear in him. Not of me. For me. Maybe not, he said. But someone wanted me to believe. She was buried with that necklace. And someone wanted you to wake up without a name. Vincent did not ask me to prove who I was. That would have been easier to hate. Instead, he asked questions that felt too small to matter and too precise to be accidental. We stood in that hotel library with the open door behind us and Manhattan shining beyond the rain-streaked glass, while the gala continued outside, as if my entire life had not just tilted under my feet. He took a slow breath, like a man approaching a locked room he was not sure he had the right to enter. Do you like lilies? He asked. I stared at him. What? Lilies? White ones. The question was so strange that for a second I forgot to be scared. No, I said. They smell like hospital hallways. His eyes lowered. Not much. Just enough. Evelyn said the same thing. My fingers tightened around the necklace. A lot of people hate lilies. Do you take sugar in coffee? No, cinnamon. I stopped breathing. I had never told anyone that. Margaret used to tease me because I put cinnamon in black coffee like it was a secret ritual. Sometimes, I said carefully, when it is raining. Vincent turned slightly, and the light touched the sharp edge of his cheekbone. Only when it rained, he murmured. I hated the softness in his voice. I hated that some lonely, hidden part of me leaned toward it. "You are doing this on purpose," I said. "You are feeding me coincidences until I look like the woman you lost." His gaze snapped back to mine. "No, I am trying not to want the impossible." That should have sounded dramatic. It did not. It sounded tired. Honest. More dangerous than a lie. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket slowly, giving me time to step back. I did. He noticed, and pain flickered across his face before he hid it. From the pocket, he pulled a small envelope, worn at the corners. He did not hand it to me. He placed it on the table between us, then stepped away. "I carry this because grief makes fools of disciplined men," he said. "Open it or do not." I should have left. I should have walked back into the ballroom, collected my $200, and taken the subway home to Brooklyn with my borrowed dress hidden under my coat. But the envelope sat there like it had been waiting 7 years for my hands. I opened it. Inside was a photograph of a woman laughing beside the same piano I had just played. Dark blonde hair pinned loosely. Pale skin. A silver necklace at her throat. My necklace. I did not look exactly like her. That was the first thing my mind grabbed onto. Her face was softer. More certain. Her smile looked like it belonged to a person who knew where she came from. But then I saw her hand. 2 fingers resting against her chest, just above the pendant. The same way I held mine when I was afraid. My knees weakened. Vincent moved, then stopped himself. He did not come closer. "Grace," he said, and my name sounded wrong in his mouth, like he was trying to respect it and grieve it at the same time. "Who taught you the song?" "No one." "You sang it in her pronunciation." "I do not speak Italian." "I know." The rain pressed harder against the windows. Somewhere beyond the open door, a woman laughed too loudly, and the sound made me flinch. Vincent saw that too. He saw everything. My hand went to my left wrist, rubbing a place that ached when I was nervous. His eyes followed the movement. "You used to do that when you heard glass break," he said. The room narrowed around me. A sharp image flashed behind my eyes. Not a memory. A feeling. Heat without flame. Smoke without shape. A music box slowing down, note by note, until silence swallowed it. I grabbed the edge of the table. "Stop," I whispered. "Please stop." Vincent went still. "I am sorry." The apology was immediate. Quiet. It did not fit the man the room seemed afraid of. I looked at the photograph again, and suddenly the woman in it felt less like a stranger and more like a question my body had been carrying for years. "What was her full name?" I asked. His throat moved. "Evelyn Claire Hale." Claire. The middle name struck something inside me, so hard I stepped back. My hospital bracelet from Pennsylvania had not listed a name, but Margaret once told me I had said one word in my sleep for months. Not Grace. Not Evelyn. Claire. Vincent saw my face change, and whatever hope entered his eyes frightened me more than suspicion ever could. "You do not remember me," he whispered. "But your fear does." I did not wait for Vincent to finish that sentence. Maybe another woman would have demanded answers. Maybe someone braver would have held the photograph up to the light and asked why her own face had started to feel borrowed. I was not brave in that moment. I was 26 years old, standing in a hotel library with a powerful stranger who knew the shape of my fear better than I did, and all I could think was that I had to get away before he convinced me I belonged to a dead woman's life. "I need air," I said. Vincent stepped aside immediately. That made it worse. If he had blocked me, I could have hated him. If he had ordered me to stay, I could have run on anger. But he only moved away from the door and said, "Take my car. My driver will bring you wherever you want to go. I do not want anything from you." My voice shook, but I kept walking. The men outside looked at Vincent, not me, waiting for permission to exist. He gave one small nod, and no one stopped me. I crossed the ballroom with the photograph still burning behind my eyes. The piano sat abandoned near the east wall, the bench pushed back, the last note of that impossible song still trapped somewhere in the strings. People stared as I passed. Not openly. Rich people rarely do anything openly unless they have already paid for the privilege. They glanced over champagne rims and diamond earrings, watching the hired musician leave like she had become part of the entertainment. I grabbed my coat from the staff room and pushed through the service exit into the alley behind the Beaumont Hotel. The cold hit me first, then the rain. It soaked through my borrowed dress in seconds, flattening my hair against my cheeks, turning the city into streaks of red brake lights and gold windows. I walked fast toward Fifth Avenue, one hand locked around the necklace under my coat. The pendant felt warmer now, as if my skin had finally realized it was carrying someone else's history. I told myself Vincent was grieving. That was all. Grief made patterns out of accidents. Grief heard dead voices in living mouths. Grief could turn a cheap music teacher from Brooklyn into a ghost if the lighting was soft enough and the wound was deep enough. But then I remembered the middle name. Claire. My feet slowed. A cab splashed through a puddle beside me, sending dirty water over the curb and onto my shoes. I barely noticed. 7 years. Lancaster. No identification. A necklace declared buried with a woman named Evelyn Hale. Too many coincidences had begun to stack themselves into something with walls. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Margaret. I almost answered. I needed her voice. Needed the familiar warmth of the woman who made soup when I was sick and called every Sunday after church. But my thumb froze over the screen because another memory rose, quiet and unwelcome. Margaret in the kitchen years ago, whispering into the phone when she thought I was asleep. No, she does not remember. No. I will not tell her. I had told myself it was about hospital bills, foster paperwork, anything ordinary. Now nothing felt ordinary. I ignored the call and kept walking. That was when I noticed the black sedan. It was parked half a block behind me with its headlights off, engine running. At first, I thought it belonged to Vincent. Then I saw the driver turn his face away too quickly when I looked back. My stomach tightened. I crossed the street without waiting for the light. Horns erupted around me, sharp and angry, but I kept moving. The sedan rolled forward. Slow. Patient. Not chasing. Following. That was worse. I ducked into a 24-hour pharmacy on the corner, heart hammering, and pretended to study a shelf of cough drops while looking at the security mirror above the register. 2 minutes later, a man in a gray overcoat entered. He did not look at the shelves. He looked at me. My hand went cold around the necklace. Vincent's voice came back to me, low and certain. Someone wanted you to wake up without a name. I backed toward the rear aisle, my breath caught somewhere between a scream and a prayer. The man smiled like he knew exactly which one I would choose. The man in the gray overcoat moved like someone who had practiced being forgettable. Average height. Plain face. No hurry. He picked up a bottle of aspirin from the shelf without reading the label, his eyes flicking toward the security mirror, then back to me. My mouth went dry. The pharmacy suddenly felt too bright, too narrow. Every aisle a little hallway with nowhere honest to hide. A teenager behind the register scrolled through his phone, unaware that my whole life had reduced itself to one thought. Do not let this man get close enough to speak. I backed past cold medicine, bandages, greeting cards with smiling cartoons that seemed cruel under the fluorescent lights. My wet shoes squeaked against the tile. The man heard it. Of course he did. His head tilted slightly, and the small smile returned, polite enough to look normal from a distance. Grace Miller, he asked. My name sounded wrong in his voice. I turned and walked faster. Not running. Running would admit panic, and some frightened part of me believed panic made you easier to catch. At the end of the aisle, an emergency exit sign glowed red above a metal door. I pushed it open with both hands, and an alarm screamed into the night. Rain slapped my face. I stumbled into the back alley, nearly slipping on wet pavement, and kept moving. Garbage bins lined one wall. Steam rose from a vent near the ground. Somewhere above me, a kitchen fan hummed and rattled. Behind me, the emergency door opened again. I did run then. My lungs burned in the cold air. The borrowed dress tangled around my knees beneath my coat, and the necklace bounced against my chest like a second heartbeat. I made it maybe 50 feet before another figure stepped out from the mouth of the alley. Not Vincent. One of his men from the gala, tall and silent beneath a black umbrella. I skidded to a stop, trapped between two shadows, and for one awful second I thought I had run from one cage into another. Then Vincent Hale stepped from the streetlight behind him. No umbrella. Rain darkened his coat and clung to his hair, but he looked untouched by the chaos around him. His eyes went past me to the man in gray. The air changed. It did not get louder. It got still. Walk to me, Grace, Vincent said. Not a command. Not quite. A rope thrown across dark water. I looked back. The man in the gray overcoat had stopped near the pharmacy door, his smile gone. He raised both hands slightly, as if this were all a misunderstanding. I only wanted to talk to her. Vincent did not look impressed. Then you chose the wrong night. I stood frozen, rain running down my neck, my mind shouting that I should not trust either of them. But my body had already chosen. It stepped toward Vincent before pride could stop it. One step, then another. His man moved aside to give me space. Vincent did not reach for me. He waited until I stood close enough to see the rain caught on his eyelashes, close enough to notice that his hands were open at his sides. "Are you hurt?" he asked. I shook my head, though my whole body trembled. He took off his coat and held it out. Not around me, not over me, just offered. I stared at it. "I told you I did not want anything from you." "Then take it from the weather." I almost laughed. It came out broken and small. I took the coat because I was freezing and because the weight of it around my shoulders felt less like possession than shelter. Vincent turned to his men. "Make sure he leaves with a clear understanding that Ms. Miller is not available for conversations tonight." His voice stayed calm. No detail. No threat sharp enough to picture. Just a line drawn on wet pavement. The man in gray looked at me one last time, and in that look I saw confirmation. He knew me, or he knew who I might have been. Vincent guided me toward a black SUV waiting at the curb, careful to keep distance between us. "You followed me," I said. "Yes." "That is supposed to make me feel safer?" "No," he said. "It is supposed to make me honest." I stopped beside the open car door. Rain drummed against the roof, steady and cold. "Why did you come after me?" His eyes lowered to the necklace, then returned to my face with a restraint that seemed to cost him. "Because if you are Evelyn, I failed you once." His voice roughened, barely. "And if you are not, someone still decided your life was worth erasing." I swallowed. "What do you want?" "From me?" For the first time since I had met him, Vincent looked away. Not like a king, not like a monster, like a man standing outside a locked room with his heart on the other side. "The truth," he said, "and your permission to help you survive it." The inside of Vincent's SUV was warm, quiet, and too clean for the kind of night I had just survived. Rain blurred the windows until Manhattan looked like a city painted in running ink. I sat on the far side of the back seat with his coat wrapped around my shoulders and my hands clenched in my lap, watching him speak in low tones to the driver through the partition. He never touched me. He never crowded me. That distance should have calmed me, but it only made his presence feel larger, like a storm waiting politely outside a door. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere with records," he said. "And cameras." That sounds comforting in the least comforting way possible. A corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. Caleb found something. The name meant nothing to me until we reached a private office above a closed restaurant in Little Italy. The sign downstairs said Rossini's, but the dining room was dark, chairs stacked on tables, candles burned low in glass holders as if people had left in the middle of a prayer. Upstairs, a man in his late 40s waited beside a conference table covered in folders, photographs, and a laptop glowing blue in the dim room. He had gray at his temples, tired brown eyes, and the careful expression of someone who had learned that truth could hurt more than lies. "Grace," Vincent said, "this is Caleb Ross." Caleb nodded to me with a gentleness that did not quite hide his concern. "I am sorry we are meeting like this." "People keep saying sorry tonight," I said. "It is starting to make me nervous." Caleb looked at Vincent, then opened the first folder. 7 years ago, a woman was admitted to St. Agnes Medical Center outside Lancaster with no identification and significant smoke exposure. The intake form listed her as Jane Doe for 36 hours. Then a local widow named Margaret Reed came forward and claimed responsibility for her care. My breath stopped at Margaret's name. She did not claim responsibility. She helped me. "She did," Caleb said carefully. "I am not saying she harmed you. I am saying the paperwork does not make sense." He turned the folder toward me. I saw copies of hospital forms, blurred signatures, dates stamped in black ink. My life reduced to paper. The attending physician signed your discharge under an alias. That same physician vanished 2 weeks later. No forwarding address. No new medical license. Nothing. Vincent stood near the window, arms crossed, his face turned away. He had gone still in that frightening way again. But now I understood stillness did not always mean coldness. Sometimes it meant a man was holding himself together with both hands. Caleb opened another folder. Evelyn Hale was declared dead the same night after a fire at the Hale residence in Westchester County. The body was identified through jewelry and dental records provided by a private examiner. "The necklace," I whispered. Vincent's reflection in the window closed its eyes. Caleb nodded. The report says the necklace was recovered with the remains. My hand flew to my throat. The pendant was there. Solid. Cold. Impossible. Then the report was wrong. Not wrong, Caleb said. Constructed. The words slid through the room like a draft. Constructed meant hands. Planning. Someone choosing which truth the world would be allowed to see. My knees felt weak, so I sat in the nearest chair. Why would anyone do that? Vincent finally turned from the window. His face was pale beneath the warm light. Because Evelyn was the only part of my life I did not treat like business. Caleb placed one final item on the table. A still image from old security footage, grainy and gray. A hallway. A woman with dark blonde hair being guided through a side exit before the fire was reported. Her face was turned away, but her hand was pressed to her chest, exactly over the place where the necklace would have rested. The room tilted. I heard music. Not from the restaurant. From somewhere inside my skull. A tiny mechanical tune slowing down. One note. Then another. My fingers dug into the chair. There was a clock, I said. My voice sounded far away. Vincent stared at me. What? A little music clock. Gold. With a crack across the glass. Caleb stopped moving. Vincent took one step toward me, then caught himself. That was in our bedroom, he said. It was never mentioned in any report. I looked at him, rain tapping the windows behind us, and the words came before I could understand them. It broke before the smoke. Vincent's face changed. Not shock. Recognition sharpened by grief. Caleb looked down at the footage, his voice suddenly quiet. Grace, the fire did not hide what happened to you. Vincent finished the thought, and every word felt like a match struck in the dark. Someone pulled you out before it started. For a long time after Vincent said those words, no one moved. The old restaurant beneath us creaked in the rain, pipes ticking behind the walls, the whole building breathing like it knew secrets and hated keeping them. I stared at the frozen image on Caleb's laptop until the woman in the hallway became less like a stranger and more like a shadow walking ahead of me. Her hand was at her chest. My hand was at mine. Her body leaned slightly to the left, as if she was dizzy. Mine did the same when I stood too fast. Little things. Terrible things. The kind of proof that did not shout. It whispered until you could no longer pretend not to hear. Who took her out? I asked. I could not say me. Not yet. Caleb exchanged a look with Vincent, and I felt the answer before anyone spoke. The room seemed to lose a few degrees. Vincent placed both hands on the back of a chair, his knuckles pale, his head bowed. Adrian Locke, he said. My father's oldest advisor. Caleb slid another photograph across the table. A man in his 60s. Silver hair. Warm smile. Expensive suit. The kind of face that would make grandmothers trust him with umbrellas and children trust him with directions. Something in my stomach folded in on itself. I had seen him before. Not clearly. Not as a memory with edges. More like a figure standing behind smoke, saying something gentle while the world went dark. He was like family, Vincent continued. He taught me how to read contracts, how to shake hands with men who hated me, how to never let enemies see what mattered. His voice lowered. Then I married Evelyn, and suddenly everyone knew what mattered. I looked at the photograph. Adrian Locke's smile seemed softer the longer I stared at it, and somehow that made it worse. Why would he do this? Vincent gave a humorless breath. Because he believed love made me weak. Caleb opened a sealed envelope and removed several copied pages. We found transfers from Shell accounts to the physician in Lancaster, the private examiner who signed Evelyn's identification, and 2 former staff members from the Hale residence. All tied to Locke's office. The facts landed one by one, careful and cold. A paper trail. A false death. A woman without a name. He did not want her gone, Caleb said quietly. Not at first. He wanted Vincent changed. My eyes lifted. Vincent would not look at me. Caleb's voice softened, but that made the words heavier. After Evelyn disappeared, Vincent became exactly what Locke wanted. Focused. Unreachable. No distractions. No mercy for betrayal. No room for tenderness. Vincent turned toward the window again, but I saw his reflection. The grief there was not dramatic. It was worse. It was old. Trained into posture. So I was not killed, I whispered. I was erased. The necklace felt suddenly too heavy. Not jewelry. Evidence. A wedding vow turned into a witness. My head filled with sound again. The tiny broken music clock, rain against glass, a man's voice saying, "Stay with me, Evelyn, stay with me. I pressed both hands over my ears, but the voice was inside me. Vincent took one step, stopped, and lowered himself slowly into the chair across from mine, making himself smaller in a way I had not expected from a man like him. Grace, he said, not Evelyn, not Claire. Look at me only if you want to. That sentence saved me from the memory. I looked. His eyes were wet, though no tears fell. I need you to hear this, he said. Whatever Locke stole, he does not get to decide who you are now. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to wake up in my small Brooklyn apartment and have this be the strangest nightmare my tired mind had ever built. Instead, I looked at Adrian. Locke's photograph, and a new image broke through the dark, his hand closing around the necklace, his voice soft beside my ear. If he finds you, he becomes weak again. I stood so suddenly the chair legs scraped the floor. He knows I am alive, I said. Caleb's phone buzzed on the table at that exact moment. He read the message, and all the color left his face. Vincent did not ask what it said. He already knew by the way Caleb looked at me. Locke just requested a private meeting, Caleb said. He asked for Grace by name. Vincent did not react to Caleb's message the way I expected. He did not curse. He did not slam his fist on the table. He only went quiet, and somehow that quiet made every sound in the room sharper. Rain ticking against the window. Caleb's phone buzzing once more, then stopping. My own breath catching behind my ribs. Adrian Locke knew my name. Not Evelyn. Not Claire. Grace. The name Margaret had given me. The name I had built a life around piece by piece, with grocery lists, paychecks, overdue bills, and children at the community center who thought I could fix any song by playing it slower. I am not meeting him, I said. My voice came out flat, not brave, just empty. Vincent looked at me then, and the cold command I had seen in the ballroom was gone. What remained was something harder to face. Restraint. You do not have to. Caleb lowered the phone. He says he has information about Margaret Reed. My heart stumbled. The room seemed to pull away from me. What kind of information? Caleb's eyes flicked to Vincent, then back to me. He claims she knew more than she told you. I wanted to defend her immediately. Margaret, who cut coupons and hummed hymns while making coffee. Margaret, who sat beside my hospital bed when I woke screaming from dreams I could not explain. Margaret, who taught me that love did not always arrive with answers. But memory is cruel when fear opens the door. No, she does not remember. No, I will not tell her. Her whisper returned so clearly I had to grip the edge of the table. Grace, Vincent said softly. Sit down. Do not tell me what to do. He nodded once, accepting the correction like it mattered. Then, please sit before your body makes the decision for you. That almost made me smile. Almost. I sat because my knees were shaking and because he had asked instead of ordered. Caleb stepped away to make another call, leaving Vincent and me in the low amber light above the conference table, surrounded by proof that my life had been edited without my consent. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question that had been waiting behind every other question. If I am Evelyn, what does that make me to you? Vincent's face tightened. That is not a fair question. It is the only fair question. My fingers touched the necklace. Because everyone tonight has looked at me like I am a missing object being returned. A necklace. A name. A wife. But I am the one who woke up with nothing. I am the one who had to learn how to be a person from scratch. His eyes lowered, and for the first time, shame moved openly across his face. You are right. The words were so quiet I barely heard them. I have spent 7 years loving a memory because it was all I had. Then you walked into that room wearing her necklace and singing her song. And for one selfish moment, I wanted the universe to give me back what it took. My throat tightened. And now, he looked at me fully. Now I see a woman who owes me nothing. I hated how badly I needed to hear that. I hated that tears came anyway. If I am her, I whispered, do I belong to you? Vincent stood very still. The question seemed to hurt him more than any accusation could have. When he answered, his voice did not rise, but the words changed the room. No, you belonged to yourself before you ever belonged in my life. The tears slipped down before I could stop them. He did not move to wipe them away. He did not claim the moment. He let it be mine. I loved Evelyn, he said. I will probably love her until there is nothing left of me. But I will not use her memory to imprison Grace. The rain softened against the glass, or maybe I only heard it differently. What if I never remember everything? I asked. Then we protect what you do remember. What? If I remember and still choose my life in Brooklyn. His answer came without hesitation. Then I will make sure no one punishes you for surviving. That was the first moment I understood the difference between power and possession. Power could lock every door. Possession could call itself love and still become another cage. But Vincent Hale, feared by half the city and obeyed by the other half, sat across from me and offered the only thing no one had given me all night. A choice. Caleb returned before I could speak, his face grim but controlled. Locke agreed to send proof about Margaret. He wants an answer by midnight. Vincent looked at me, not Caleb. Your decision. I closed my hand around the necklace, and this time it did not feel like evidence. It felt like a question I was finally allowed to answer. Tell him no meeting, I said. If he has the truth, he can send it. Vincent nodded once, and in his eyes I saw something fragile rise. Not victory. Respect. By midnight, the city had gone quiet in the way New York only does after rain. Not silent, never silent, but softened at the edges. Caleb's phone received the files at 11:47. No meeting. No bargain. Just a folder of scanned letters, old bank transfers, and one voice recording from Margaret Reed that made the room feel too small for breathing. Caleb played it only after asking me twice if I was sure. I said yes both times, though my hands were shaking so badly Vincent turned a glass of water toward me without a word. Margaret's voice came through thin and tired, older than I had ever heard it. She said she found me outside St. Agnes after a man paid her to claim me as family. She said she knew I was in danger because I kept waking up crying one name, Vincent, over and over until the nurses started asking questions. She said she told herself silence was mercy. If no one knew who I was, no one could come take me back into a world that had almost destroyed me. Then her voice broke. Tell her I am sorry, she whispered on the recording. Tell her I loved her wrong, but I did love her. I did not cry at first. I only sat there, listening to the rainwater drip from the fire escape outside the window, thinking about all the birthday cakes Margaret had made, all the Christmas mornings, all the times she had brushed my hair back from my face and called me her brave girl. Love could save you and still steal from you. That was the hardest truth of the night. When dawn began to pale the windows, I asked Vincent to take me back to the Beaumont Hotel. Caleb looked surprised. Vincent did not. He only nodded, as if he had learned that asking why too quickly could turn concern into pressure. The ballroom was empty when we returned. No champagne, no donors, no string quartet, just workers folding linens and sweeping rose petals from the marble floor. The piano still sat near the east wall, waiting like it remembered me. I walked to it slowly. My dress was wrinkled. My shoes were ruined from the rain. Vincent's coat still hung around my shoulders, heavy with warmth that no longer felt like a debt. I sat down and placed my fingers on the keys. For a moment, nothing happened. Then my hands moved before my mind did. The melody came soft at first, the same Italian song from the gala, but fuller now, steadier, carrying a second part one had not known I knew. Behind me, Vincent stopped walking. I felt it more than heard it. The air changed the way it had when he first saw the necklace. Only this time there was no command in it, no fear dressed as control. Only grief being asked to become hope very carefully. My fingers found the final notes, and with them came a memory so clear it made the room disappear. A smaller room, candlelight, rain against a window. Vincent younger, smiling in a way I had never seen, his hands trembling as he fastened the necklace around my throat. His voice near my ear, warm and unguarded. When the world gets loud, listen for me. I stopped playing. The silence after the song felt alive. I turned on the bench. Vincent stood several feet away, exactly where a respectful man would stand when he was afraid of wanting too much. His eyes were red, but he did not hide them. I did not remember everything. Not the wedding date. Not the first kiss. Not the life that had been taken apart and scattered across 7 missing years. But I remembered the sound of him trying to sing beside me and getting the words wrong on purpose just to make me laugh. I remembered safety. Not the kind built from locked doors or men in dark suits. The kind built from being known gently. Vinny, I said, and his face broke before the rest of him did. He lowered his head, one hand covering his mouth, and for the first time since I had met him, Vincent Hale looked less like a man who ruled a city and more like someone finally allowed to come home. I stood, but I did not run to him. That mattered. He waited. That mattered more. I crossed the distance because I chose to, because Grace Miller deserved the truth, and Evelyn Hale deserved to be mourned without being trapped inside it. When I reached him, I touched the necklace between us and whispered, "I do not know how much of her I can give you back." Vincent looked at me with a tenderness that did not ask for proof. "Then give me today," he said. "Only today." So I did. Not as a ghost. Not as a possession. Not as a wife returned from the dead to repair a powerful man's heart. I gave him one morning, one song, one honest beginning. And somewhere beyond the glass, Manhattan woke under clean gray light, reminding me that some people do not return to us with answers. They return with wounds, and ask if we still know how to love gently.